Okay, hey everyone, Ali is here. Will talk about Project Gale here. Maybe a couple of you remember we had initial demo about able to run GitHub Actions with the Dagger as an initial presentation for this one. And after that, we created and continued this project, and now we have an MVP, really basic MVP. But now we had a little bit more structured way. So I will demo about Project Gale. I will give more details about that and why we are doing that in a bit. So if we start, so what is Project Gale? Project Gale stands for GitHub Action Local Executor. And like I said in my first demo as well, why we are doing that, because GitHub Actions is one of the most common and most used CI/CD system in the ecosystem at the moment, and it has really cool features. It's tightly coupled with the events and repositories, but one major setback is that what we are started is it's not able to run locally. So we don't have way to test it local execution. So we start with that feature, and then we saw additional requests from the projects and other members from the community, and we pivot the project a little bit, make it easier for the Dagger developers as well. So make it more running and extending Dagger's capabilities with a couple of new features in here. So why we are running this one? As I said, first, as a developer, I would love to run local actions. Probably most of you is familiar when you are developing a new action, some triggers and some workflows doesn't able to run locally, or you can't test it. You need to push itself. And I'm remembering I had in a day 100 and 150 failures and more than 100 mails in my mailbox just to make sure and fine tune some workflow. And this was affecting my performance and all team, everyone just getting C, and their visibility of the CI/CD is getting lower just to run and test. And because of this reason, testing and debugging GitHub Actions is too hard, because you only have one chance to push, and some things in running in main. So how we are going to push? You are going to disturb the production. So that's one of the biggest problem. And the hidden cost and hidden feature after we make initial demo and from the feedbacks, and one of my experience from previous companies, when we start using the Dagger, we created project called Daggers. It's called now D2IQ Daggers. And we want to switch, because we had multiple problems with the GitHub Actions and we saw the Dagger, we are too excited. Then we realized switching the Dagger itself, it was too high cost for us, because we need to replace every action and everything we use in our containers. So that means we need to develop everything from scratch, and even the basic actions we are using, really huge development time. So it was game stopper for us. And this is also allow us I will show you how, but it's reducing the switch cost and migration cost to the Dagger. And it will create more flexible CI/CD solutions. So I can mix with the Dagger containers with some steps or custom actions with the GitHub Actions to able to migrate easily or create better solution. So let's see some code here, because presentation, even for me, it doesn't make sense without seeing the code. Let's started with the repository itself. So when we are talking about Gale actually two main parts. One of them is the Gale itself is the main orchestrator, which is managing and giving us API for the GitHub Actions. And we had another project going on is GHX, GitHub Actions Executor, which is the main kitchen of the building. It's the core of this one, but we are going to focus on only Gale this point, but we will be using another project in the background. But Gale itself is usable for two different ways. It has a CLI option, so you can run and download as a CLI, like I showed in this code block. We can use Dagger Run at the moment. We can use Dagger Run CI lint. This means my CI workflow. Let me show you directly. it means it's getting my CI workflow and running my linting actions. And this is the definition what I have. So basically, the previous code I show you in this README file will run my action, and I just, for make it easier, I wrap it with the make command. Let's start it, make link and let it run in the sideways, and I will continue for this one. And the second usage as this one, this is running as a CLI and reading my workflows and running it with given job. But as second workflow, you can use Gale as a library. I'm currently using Mage to make it easier. And just basically, I'm getting my Dagger client and initializing a Gale, which is basically pre-configured Dagger container. It doesn't do anything else with an API. Then I'm calling a container modifier to set debug manually, change the container itself. And I'm running with same code with CI and build. But what I can do with the API or library is I can overwrite the step. I'm giving overwrite the first step in the job with a shell command, which is checkout code. So I don't want to check out new code from the repository. I just want to test my current repository without pushing it. So I'm just disabling it with an overwrite. And I'm adding 2 additional steps, testing step and CI linting step in a single run. I will show it just after this one. So this is my basic output for my execution of the command. Basically, what we are doing is we are setting a job like GitHub Actions does, downloading all necessary actions. And then this is showing, I just disabled the checkout to make sure. So this is the injected step by me to run commands. Then it will continue to replicate. Let's continue this one. It's basically running these steps sequentially. So this is Golang CLI. Yeah, since they have better visualization support in the GitHub Actions, this is a little bit harder to read. So I just try to make it a little bit more fancier. But because of the presentation settings, it's a little bit harder to see, all of these logs. But this is basically run the GitHub CI lint and says no linting issues found. But after that, to able to make it easier for us to, work with this one and find the problems, we are also, let me quit the presentation mode here.
And as you're pulling that up, a question came in. Why did you choose to wrap the make rather than putting that in Dagger?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. Why did you choose to wrap the make rather than putting that in Dagger?
Yeah, it's basically, it's just using Dagger in the background, but I don't want to download everything from scratch or make sure they exist. Make is only enabling to downloading Gale CLI, Dagger CLI, and wrapping the Dagger command. It's still running Dagger in the background, but it's just more convenient for me to writing make lint and everything happening in the background. And after each run, so we have a directory for everything we are running here. This is the state, the tool called GHX we are running. And basically, it's showing which environment, which actions, or which steps we configured here. What is the exit code about current failure, and what was the outputs of the step. So to able to, and just for the step 2, which is the installation of the Go, added new path to the root itself. So we can see what's happened in the background. This is then just an artifacts and log files for us. What happened in the background, so as an artifact. So basically we are exporting that. And this was just for the running command line as a tool, but I will write mage all, but what this code is going to do is, let me go to the presentation mode again. Okay. This is the code block I showed you just earlier. This is just same. This is a wrapper. It will run a mage command with the Dagger itself. And it will create a container with the given image. Then it will modify the container and run the next of the steps. Previously, we just only linting command, but I want to extend that my build command with the linting and testing. So it will basically add additional steps in here. Let me see. Okay. So basically, there's too much output, but this run. And this was only for the local execution. This is only limited support with the Node.js actions and bash runs at the moment, but we can run. But one additional features I would love to show here. This is not only limited with our local actions. So when we are running the local, and our aim was running it locally, but since we are able to run Dagger and Dagger able to run GitHub Actions, and one of the questions, what about Dagger in Dagger? And now I'm presenting you GitHub Actions in a Dagger in a GitHub Actions. So we have a workflow file. Just run these steps in GitHub Actions, but these GitHub Actions only just a wrapper. What we are going to do in the background, we are going to read the environment variables and configuration for the runner, inject it our Dagger containers and Dagger job steps, and run GitHub Actions itself inside of the Dagger. So let me trigger one workflow. Let me get a little bit bigger, probably easier to read. And the positive side, and the benefit of this one, it will make easier to migration to the GitHub. So when you have a workflow and you have an actions and local action doesn't work you very well, but you want to use Dagger in a GitHub Actions, you can basically load your GitHub Actions workflow to the Dagger and create a wrapper workflow to run you, and all configuration events, triggers, everything will be read from the environment and injected to the Dagger. And we are not doing that at the moment, but it's possible to writing back to the GitHub Actions as well. So if you have a report, step summary, or anything related to your workflows, we can return it back to the GitHub. So this is just start setting the job and running it in this workflow. It should finish in a minute. While we are running this one, let me talk about one step further. Last community call, Gerard and Kyle is talk about the running Dagger in a self-hosted runners. So the previous examples was using our public GitHub Actions runners and creating a Dagger engine for per run. So each of these jobs creating a new Dagger engine. So we are not able to use caching or nice features of the Dagger in here. We are repeating everything over and over again. But since Dagger can run in Kubernetes clusters, it's easily manageable with and comparable with the self-hosted runners. And Gerard kindly created a cluster for me using a Dagger engine, common Dagger engine for the all runners, and created a self-hosted runner. So basically what we are doing it here, one extra step from the previous one, we have a self-hosted runner using the Dagger engine, configured a single Dagger engine. And we had a couple additional tool installations here to make sure self-hosted runner has all the things we need. And the run make file again, but I will trigger this one. It will again definitely create the same output from the previous one, but the only difference for this one, it will able to use cache. So currently Gale is not using the cache and not have optimized for this one. So the performance is about the same. But when we have more complicated workflows and other stuff, we can use our GitHub Actions and Dagger cache and Dagger engine at the same time with using this one. So this is allowing us to easier migration and faster GitHub runs in the long run.
Thank you, Ali. Perfect. Yeah, actually, there is one. Connor was asking. We can probably make this for a next community call. But what is the next roadmap items for Gale? Okay, next roadmap items. Since we had the initial MVP, this is only supporting very little amount of the workflows like Node.js actions and runs. Next step would be in next couple of weeks. We will extend the step support and all the missing features, and we will try to create alpha release to able to make sure to support and usable initial for the projects, because currently this is only running in the really happy path. But if we add the missing features, it will be useful for simple testing, linting, and other support in the other projects as well. So our first priority is releasing the alpha version.